After I graduated, I joined in this boutique consulting firm. Normally, we will do 9 to 11. Having less sleep is kind of like a flex. The moment I touch my bed, countless thoughts come up. If you want to fall asleep and cannot fall asleep, just find us. It is an app that you can open at night that can help you wind down with a conversation before bed that understand how you're feeling and then creates the exact audio experience that you need for that night. We want you from scrolling your phone to like turning off your phone. Ultimately, we want people to get rid of the app.
I'm feeling so freaking tired. I want to go to bed. But now, imagine a scenario where you're just thinking the exact same thing like me. You're so tired. You just got home off from work from like 12 hours long day. It's been so much work. And your body is so exhausted and it's asking you to go to your bed. But your mind's too wired and you're still thinking about so many random stuff that went through your mind. Whatever stuff that your colleague asked you to do, your boss asked you to do, your clients asked you to do. And you just couldn't go to bed. Our guest for this episode, Andy Liu, went through the exact same pain point herself, and she figured out a solution that's quite unconventional. So, if you're one of the people who's having difficulties going to bed because of the long hours of work out there, make sure to listen to and check out this full episode.
And for those who are unfamiliar with the 18VC podcast, we are a student-run podcast featuring student and young founders and also investors who are willing to back them in their earliest stage. And we aim to become the first discoverer of high potential student founders and also help them all the way and document their stories until their legends become known to everybody. And if you want to know why Andy quit her job as an elite consultant and become the savior of all the people who are having a hard time sleeping, just watch the full episode.
And if you're watching it or listening to this episode right before your bedtime, 99.
Andy, happy to see you here. Thank you so much for hopping on and joining us on this episode of recording in 18VC podcast. So before we talk about Lullaby, which is exactly what you're building, right? I do want to start with you. Maybe could you walk us back a bit and tell us what you were doing and what was your life like before this company?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me as well. So I like to track very, very back. I was born and raised in Chongqing.
Obviously.
And then, I went to college in New York University, and that is the reason why I moved to New York for my college education. And after I graduated, I stayed in Manhattan, joining this boutique consulting firm, which is a strategy consulting firm that specializes in event industry. But like I stayed there for a year and a half ish and realized that there's something that is more interesting that I want to pursue, and that's when I made my decision to start Lullaby.
Oh, so you mentioned you spent some time pool strategy, right? And it was a consulting role. So what was your day-to-day life like in a consulting environment?
Well, I would say we're a little bit different because we specialize in events industry, but we can kind of like separate it to two parts. So the first one is like the normal, consulting activities, like meetings on and on and creating pitch decks, drawing the beautiful pitch decks, doing interviews to get insights from the professionals from that industry. That's the most part. And outside of that, since we're doing due diligence for some of the events, we're gonna be like traveling in person to join some of like the large conferences and talk to the attendees, talk to the vendors at that location and ask about their opinions about like the conferences and stuff. And essentially we're going to integrate that into our decision making, which will ultimately be outputted in a feedback.
I see. So what was I try to get an idea of like what was your work pressure mainly coming from? And is it more so like the physical pressure or like more mental say?
I think both. Like as we all know, like consulting is a very like steep learning curve industry, and people have like very high expectation about your output, about your execution. So like mentally, people when entering this industry kind of expect that they would be like doing great. They need to like
Right.
push themselves to excel so that they can, get promoted and get seen by the company and the leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the other hand, it is like very physically stressful as well because like
Mhm.
normally we will do like 9 to 11, 9 to
9 to 11. Oh, wow.
as like a normal time when we're on the pipeline. Yeah, so like I think like both kind of like compoundedly contributed.
Oh, that sounds so tough. And is that so? And you mentioned that you started having sleep problem. Was it right from the beginning, or does it occur like sometime during your journey there?
I think like it really started in the beginning, but like I gradually realized how how impactful it is
I see.
kind of later in. Yeah, like I've always been a light sleeper, but
Oh.
like back in college, like I think this is something that is still like manageable because like I don't have a
Mm.
very fixed schedule.
Hmm.
But I think like once I started my full-time job as a consultant, there's like a hard
Yes.
deadline. You need to wake up every morning, right?
Yeah.
And for the prior day you are not exactly like when you can log off, so like
Yeah.
having like uncertain time of falling asleep and have a like very set time of
Wow.
waking up, I think that really kind of exacerbates, not exacerbate, but like
Yeah.
that really like made my sleep quality even worse.
I see. And in your early time experiencing that lack of sleep, did you try to, I guess, normalize it just as like being productive, like a lot of like young ambitious people would do?
Yeah, I think absolutely like from the very beginning, because like especially people in, I mean like financial
Yeah,
industry,
in finance and consulting. Yeah.
consulting industries, they
Yeah.
almost feel like having less sleep is kind of like
Hmm.
flex for
Yeah.
like their excelling their work.
Yeah.
That's how I like used to think about it when I first joined, but then I realized that there's no equal sign between being an ambitious person versus like
How so?
lack of sleep, right? Because like the less sleep I get, and like as it compounds over weeks, I realize my brain just start like functionally really slow, and that kind of like gets me further to me trying to be like um, excelling at my work.
I see. I see.
Yeah,
Totally makes sense.
definitely. And I think that experience actually relates to the initial or origin story of why you decided to start up as a Lullaby and solve that problem. So we do observe that you have a post about what's behind the initial uh, incentive of building such a product. You describe as it was like a 2 a.m. and you are after the consulting deadlines, you have reread your Slack messages again and again. You're already read before, but you still feel so tired and you feel so worried that and you are exhausted to do anything about that, even though you are tired, but you just cannot get to sleep. And at that moment, and you mentioned your boyfriend started making a bedtime story for you, and actually that worked, and it was finally able to fall asleep. Can you tell us a little bit more about that moment? What was happening in your mind at that night? And what do you think is? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's it. I will cut it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I think if I think like going back to those days, I think like the moment I touch my butt, like countless thoughts just like come up. And it could be like about very different things, but like all of those are about like, like maybe a future deadline. Like tomorrow I have to do XYZ by this deadline. And also like today, oh, what is the things that on my list that haven't been able to finish but needs to get done by tomorrow morning. And also like sometimes I even kind of thought about, some occasions that happened 10 years ago, and I think I should have like said that sentence instead of this sentence like for that specific moment. Yeah, so like it was like just countless thoughts, and I still remember like I used to like dream talk, and it was actually with my friend. We're traveling to Barcelona for a music festival, and we're sharing a bed. and like the day before I arrived, they already arrived there. So like I joined them, and the next morning when I wake up, they were like, "Oh, do you know like you're dream talking?" I was like, "What did I say?" And they were like, "Oh, you were talking about like you want to geo clone some events in, New York City, Washington, D.C., and Seattle, blah, blah, blah." I was like, wait, that is exactly the context that I have for that project, like before I head out for this music festival. And because like it has been like nonstop in my mind, like from the back end, it's somehow kind of like I dream talked about it. And I was even at that point like feeling really stressful because I was like, do I have to check with my team if like this violates the NDA we signed for for the client, something like that. Yeah, so like those moments are actually like quite common. And the point where my boyfriend helped with that was kind of like I tried multiple methods to help me like fall asleep and try to like not overthink and try to like cut off my thoughts, like those things that are too wired on my mind. But I realized, like the meditation apps, like Calm and Headspace, they have very structured and a large library. But I try a lot of them and doesn't seem to be working for me somehow. And then I also try like some of the supplements, like the melatonin, magnesium stuff, etc. But like still, I feel like since my sleep is not like categorized as sleeping disorder. I think like what I need is more like a kind of like an emotional side of acknowledgement and like having a familiar or comfortable voice that can cut off my thoughts. So like that is the point where I realized, okay, like actually I can have my boyfriend telling me bedtime story. Like, and he actually proposed it once, and we tried it once, and I realized, wow, this is like more helpful than any other method I used. So we've been keeping that as kind of like our winding down routine like for a long time.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And I do see that you're mentioning that maybe that's not actually a physical disorder, but it's more of like a mental feeling thing that it's about mental comfort, mental ease. And then moving on to this, your boyfriend's telling the bedtime stories to you. Do you think it's actually the story itself that matters, or is his voice that matters, or if it's the something behind that is the kinship, the sense of security, the sense of trust, and the sense of being taken care of that really help you ease your anxiety?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think that definitely comes in different layers, right? So like I think to start with, the first layer is actually the content. But like it doesn't mean like all of the content for that bedtime story is really important. I think what is most important is like the starting, like first paragraph of the bedtime story is the most important.
Mm,
Like a little bit context is that my boyfriend used to like pick, like the fluffy toys from our room and like use that as a character to create the bedtime story. And I think it is because I'm listening to, a story about a toy that I'm so familiar to that I get attracted from the first place to like engage in the story. And but like what keeps me continuously engaged in that is like my boyfriend's voice, right? And because
mhm,
like I really like his voice is not, like a lot of meditation apps, they give you kind of like a therapy voice, a therapist voice. They're absolutely professional, but kind of just lack a little bit of fun and intimacy.
mm,
So I was like, okay, like I really like my boyfriend's voice, and I think that is something that has been very helpful for me to like follow for the whole kind of bedtime story. And like I think the third layer underneath that is what you mentioned, like the familiarity, the security, the trust, right? Like I think the the difference between me listening to calm headspace versus listening to my boyfriend's like bedtime story is really like I know the words he said are staying like true to me, like staying like being very honest to me, right? Whereas
mhm,
like for the content for the meditation app, sometimes they're very structured, but they
mhm,
are kind of like very guidance oriented instead of saying like, oh, like I feel you, I see you, and kind of like put that integrated into the bedtime story itself. Yeah. I does
mhm.
that answer your question? Hopefully.
Yeah, so
Oh,
you're trying to recreate that sense of the safety and authenticity through building Lullaby, right? So my question is that will you be competing directly against those AI boyfriends, girlfriends kind of apps in the future?
I think my answer is no. Yeah, like I think we are trying to position ourselves as very sleep focused, right?
Hmm.
And I think like our difference between us and other like AI boyfriend girlfriend
Hmm.
companionship apps is that they're trying to like get you engaged more on the content. They want you to stay on the platform as much as possible. But for us, it is really like we want you to, from scrolling your phone to like turning off your phone. Like we
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to help with that part, right?
Right.
So
I can actually feel that because when I was signed up for the test flight and testing version, and being like a tester test user myself, I tried to throw in a lot of noise around it. I tried to talk to it by saying, tell me something outside that's not totally relevant to to the sleep. Like tell me more about the stock market. Tell me about the weather tomorrow. And then I realized that I gradually observed that it will always try to nudge me into going to bed. And so I think that's the biggest difference between this and most of other traditional companion apps out there is they all want you to stay. But what you're building is trying to, make me drift away from the platform.
yeah, like our North Star metrics is really different from those platforms in a way, like also like going back to why we kind of put the focus on sleep. Because like in order to fall asleep, you really need to like kind of like zoom out of
Hmm.
the informations that you're kind of always on top of, right? Like the stock market, like what's the next day's to do list, right? Like, and after we talk to a lot of like people who have like similar kind of like falling asleep issues like us, we realize a lot of times they really like to listen to a very like nonsense content that makes no sense at all, but because it
Hmm.
doesn't make any sense, that it helped them to kind of like cut off from a very logical daytime experience like work routine, and kind of like drift towards a sleeping state. So like I think that is the essentially what's difference underlying us with other companion apps.
Totally.
I think
That very much
it,
aligned with my experiences.
is that actually more of like a distraction from like your daytime work? Is that what the app is trying to achieve?
um I think it's part of it. Like,
Hmm.
so we started with the bedtime stories, but apparently we're not only focusing on the bedtime stories, right?
Mm.
So we're doing like, like the normal kind of content people consume for sleep are bedtime stories, meditations, white noise, etc. So like bedtime story is like our first motivation of start doing it, but ultimately we really want to kind of provide the right solutions, or not right solution, like the right kind of comfort for the user based on their daytime experience. And like the part of cutting off is for those users who tend to overthink and turn to like have very wired sleep before going to sleep, right? Whereas like for some
Hmm.
other users, they might just be like, oh, I actually have a very happy day today, I want to share with you.
Hmm.
Then that's where the chat function would place in a bit more, because like if you don't speak it out, you kind of like, oh, I feel so excited, I feel so excited, like it keeps replacing your mind. But like once you say it out and you feel like acknowledged, you like
Right.
that also kind of builds towards your wind down routine.
Right, right. And going back to how you actually validate and figure out that there's actually demand beyond just yourself that's craving for product like that. So you posted this up to Reddit, right? And then you receive immense public support. What was your first reaction when you saw the top comment, which is protect that man at all cost?
Yeah, I like my first reaction was that I actually showed it to my boyfriend, and he was like, "You see, people acknowledge you should cherish me more." It's like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but like I think outside of that, I also see like people's need towards, like the acknowledgement, emotional kind of comfort before going to bed. Um, and a lot of times, like, people would kind of recall their childhood memory of like their either uncle, auntie, like grandparents, or their mom and dad talking bedtime story to them, but it somehow kind of like paused in the middle of the progress they growing up, right? But then they were like, oh, that's so sweet. I wish I have that. So like that's the point where I realized, okay, like first of all, it looks like a interesting topic to explore more. And second of all, like I'm really curious, like what is the mechanism like behind that? And like that going back to Philip's topic like before is like why we think the content, the voice, and the level of trust is really important.
I see. And then before you actually set out to found a company and build your own solution to target this problem, I'm just wondering, have you done like comprehensive market research on all those potential competitors out there like Calm, Headspace, Indel, and Better Sleep, etc.?
I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, like, despite of like coming out of a business background, I indeed starting the business trusting my gut.
Oh wow, that's a way to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, like, but like I think the research and interviews is something we're exploring along the way.
Mm,
Because like I do think, in order to like receive feedback from people that is actually like that actually like is surrounded by the actual product you have, like that is more helpful than asking them a general question like, oh, what is your pain point about going to sleep, right? Like they can give you a thousand answers, but like after you kind of like create a demo, which is like our first version is a vibe coded app to them, like after they try it out, they can like kind of like specify the feedback, specify the areas that work and that didn't work, right? I think like agree. I think doing market research is a very kind of like a well-known and
yeah,
a very structured way to do it. But like I think right now in a day where like there are so many products coming out every
absolutely.
day, right? Like you need to like catch their attention first by putting it out there and then
Yes.
like gradually building towards it.
Absolutely. I think the speed and how fast you can iterate is actually becoming the moat. And you don't want to spend too much time doing doing desk work research. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is also important. Like that's
Yeah.
something like because like I realized I started from a founder's perspective, then I talked to a lot of like, other investors, I talked to other like founders, like
Mhm.
multiple time founders. I think they really value that. Investors especially. So like I feel like that does has its value in it, but like ultimately at the end of the day it's trying to like test see like if there's the actual need in this market and does this actually contributes to your traction, right?
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think we can move on a bit to the audiences or the target customers you are actually aiming at. So, from your ideal view, or the other, as you just covered, actually, investors or founders, these guys of people who have a really quick, working pace and also have a busy life. And well, what is the ideal customer look like, and who do you assume they will be like willing to use your product?
Yeah, I think like the customer ideal customer profile really started with myself,
Hmm.
and now we kind of like draw a more clear picture of like the ICP being of overstimulated achievers. And these tend to be like, either like students who are preparing for exams or like young professionals in very high stress industries like consulting, banking, like or healthcare, etc.
Mm.
And but at the end of the day, it's really like whoever's mind keeps running at that time when they really want to fall asleep. Yeah.
Hmm. That's yeah, definitely. I can sense that I may like resonate with that. I don't really have a problem sleeping, but that would definitely be helpful, especially when sometimes like you do want to sleep, but like it's not a normal time for sleeping.
Oh, I'm pretty sure, Philip, you don't have a problem sleeping because we need to do more work then. I think we need to pack our schedule a bit more. So
Oh man, don't pressure me. Anyway, I think yeah, in the future I would need your product definitely if Lucas keeps going this way. Uh, And then let's move on. And maybe Kale just walk us through the product as it is today. What are its main features? What does it look like? How would you describe it to a user, people who may be interested in your product but have not yet used it before?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I just want to add like one more thing to the ICP that we discussed earlier, because since we also talk about, like the medical supplements that could be potentially used for helping you with sleep. I think like we are really not targeting like clinical insomnia, which I think like a lot of like other, like the hardwares and like
Yes.
the sleep counseling therapists they're targeting. And we do think like that is something that really needs medical attention when you like get into the stage of like having sleep disorder instead of like like want to be seen, want to be felt. Yes, I think that is a very clear distinction. And that actually makes like our sweet spot for the ICP to like people who cannot who can sleep but cannot turn their brain off. Yeah, but hopefully I Lucas just stop pressuring Philip into adding more work to it. Yeah, let's stay like I would rather like people not having the pressure of like going to sleep. Like ultimately we want people to get rid of the app and kind of like like the starting point of Hinge is being like wishing one day user can delete their app, and that is also
Yeah.
kind of like a same perspective for us. Okay, but going back to your point of like the product, so I think a proper way to describe it is like it is an app that you can open at night that can help you wind down with a conversation before bed that understand how you're feeling and then creates the exact audio experience that you need for that night. Um, does that make sense for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. And because it's in a sense, we under from our understanding, is it more like a like personalized content or like personalized comfort? I think there are two layers, right? The content itself is in a more shallow layer, and comfort or like mental support is deeper down. Which one is closer to what you actually want to build, like in the long run or in your ideal space?
Yeah, I think we are really like targeting both, but like for the personalized content is kind of like a delivery mechanism for the personalized comfort, right? Because
Hmm.
like for people, they have like after we talk to a lot of people, we realize like people have like very different routines for falling asleep, right? So like
Hmm.
the content is something we can get their attention first, as I earlier mentioned about like what works for my boyfriend's bedtime story. But like essentially we really want to create that by that delivery, create that sense of, say like this app is really my go-to. Like I feel kind of like trusted that at nights that I cannot fall asleep, I can open it and it will help me to get to a point where I can kind of like wind down.
Yeah, I will pushing a little bit forward on this track that about building the sense of trust with a AI companion. Correct me if I'm wrong in the wording, but I think at the root of the problem is that why your boyfriend bedtime story really helps is maybe it's the again the relationship, the kind of connection you are feeling between these two people that feels led you feels that your anxiety was seen, that you are taken care of, and he will stay with you no matter what happens and always support you. But do you really think a AI companion can achieve the same level or like or achieve a similar level kind of trust or sense of security that is building between you two?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, but like I want to make a distinction first is that the trust that I talked about earlier is not that like I trust the app like as if it is a real person. It's more like I trust this app to help me fall asleep, right? So like
Hmm.
that is kind of different from the other apps like trying to build a persona and like create an image and kind of like wants to convince you that it is like ultimately a real person from the internet that you cannot see. Yeah, so I think like there's a huge distinction about that. And for our level of trust, we really wanted to like make sure like why we want to do like personalization is because, we really want to shorten the amount of time and energy people use to kind of like find the right content for them. Right. Like a lot of people, they will explore, like 3, 4 months on calm trying to like find the right piece of like meditation or like white noise for them. And like some people like may never realize that a bedtime story is something that could be potentially helpful after they try all these different kind of like apps or like, solutions, etc. Yeah. So like what we're trying to personalize for is like to get the right content in front of you at the bedtime. And that is like the level of understanding is like rooted really in the sleep intelligence that like we know your previous behavior patterns, we know like what's your previous preferences, and then like okay, on a day like this, what would work best for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I do remember you mentioned that you are positioning yourself a little bit different from these AI companion, AI boyfriend, AI girlfriend kind of products, because you are not looking at like engagement as the most important metrics. But there was another problem I would want to ask is that because if we want to kind of for your app to get more personalized context about what these people is working on, who they met, or what happened during their daytime life. Maybe you actually want the user to get more connected to your app or your AI companion, that they feel natural or they feel willing to talk to it and share about their story. And would that actually a little bit contradict to the AI like your positioning of staying away as a AI companion product?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. But like for us, uh, a little mechanism behind our like content creation engine is like really like we create the content based on like a classifier, and that classifier is something we get from that conversation, but like very kind of like not really high level, but like something that is more a bit more general than like who you actually meet, who you actually talk to tonight, right? Because like at the end of the day, still like as I mentioned, we kind of want to like separate the daytime experiences with the audio itself. So like the conversations to share with are really there to help us get the classifier. For example, we have like busy mind, right? Like we are not like like trying to be like 100% detailed about like what is on your mind. We just know like
Hmm.
okay, like it looks like several things are hopping on your mind and you really want to get out of it. Then like that's
Hmm.
the point where we can recommend a like a body scan type of meditation for you.
Hmm.
And that content, we realized like a lot of people like mention like they don't want anything they talked about like in that conversation to be included in the content like they listen
Mhm.
to itself. I think like that is like a very kind of natural way for people to
Yeah.
fall asleep, like the preference for that. Yeah, so to answer your questions, we really just need like the like not right, but like we definitely need less context than those AI companion apps to help personalize the audio companion for the users, if that makes sense.
That
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
yeah, that's legit. And obviously like there are all types of like sleep related problems, and you don't and you also can't solve all sleep related problems at once at this stage, right? So what's the most accurate I would say description of the problem you're trying to target now? Is it I guess is it a loneliness? Is it too much noise? Right? Is it like anxiety or something else?
Yeah, I think like essentially like if you want to fall asleep and cannot fall asleep, just find us. Like that is what we're trying to be. Like we're not like targeting, like very accurately on people who cannot fall asleep because of overthinking or because who have like a very tense body after doing work. Like we're really trying to bridge the gap where people know they want to sleep but cannot fall asleep and do not know what solution may potentially work for them. And that's where we're trying to serve.
So what are those people doing today to cope with the solution? Like what are some incumbent solutions right now existing in the market?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing, they tried Calm before they tried Headspace. Some of them are like scrolling social media before going to bed, and, like doom scrolling. And we also like have friends who would like read books, who
Mhm.
would, like watch a childhood kind of like a drama series, soap opera
Yeah,
series.
or just like listen to our podcast. It can be pretty good for going to bed. Yeah.
Actually, I did fall asleep one time. I was listening to one of our
You're
podcasts.
not supposed to say that right now. This is your own podcast.
Lucas, Lucas like voice has the sense of familiarity and trust for Philip. That is exactly
Um,
what we're.
No, I think it's we are interviewing a professor, and his voice just reminds me of the day sitting in the classroom and just
and just sleeping through his
feeling
classes.
asleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the part that none of those current solution that you mentioned solve well?
I think if you like go ask anyone who have some certain like of sleep concern, like most of them would be like, oh, I want to sleep better, but I don't know how, right? And I think like that is why there's a lot of friction to get started using like apps like Calm and Headspace, because they have a comprehensive library, but like you need to try each one of them. You need to like explore the library and like praying when you open the content for the next 40 minutes and be like, I hope this is gonna help me fall asleep, but like you cannot guarantee, right? Like that is what we're trying to do, is like we want to make it like a more less passive content selection, but
Mm.
like more active kind of like providing the content to you, instead of like you having to spend like multiple days or months trying to find the content yourself.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear distinction. I think for other apps out there like Calm or like Headspace, those are more like Spotify or Netflix where you need to browse like a library and select contents from that. But for you, it's just like right now the only and the first thing that users like me would the first entry point, the first touch point will be just a chatbot. So it's very straightforward, very clear.
Yeah, and from I would like to move on a little bit to actually. I do remember you say you have interviewed a lot of potential users, and what surprised you the most when during your talk with them? And for example, what kind of do they have a clear idea of why they're are not able to sleep, or are they clear what kind of feature they want, or they don't know. They're asking for a solution.
Yeah, I think they mostly know why they cannot fall asleep, but they don't know how to help them fall asleep. Like,
Mm,
yeah, like there are so many solutions that they've tried, and like again, like people have different type of experience before going to sleep. And it's really hard to draw one conclusion, but like overall they like, I want my sleep to get better. I don't know how. Help me with that. Yeah, like that is the thing like we think are very interesting to find out that kind of align with our expectation. And like another interesting thing that we realize is actually people's need for familiarity to
hmm.
help them fall asleep. Because like there's a girl who struggles to fall asleep, and after searching on Calm for like 4 or 5 months, and finally find a piece of white noise that works perfect for her. And it is kind of like it's it's a white noise for like a natural landscape, and there's little insects like making like
Mm.
sounds, and then having the grass like in the wind, something like that. And we were really interested like why this specific scene, why does these specific voices like work for her. She was like, oh, I think it has to do with my like childhood, like when she
Hmm.
was really little. She used to like go to her grandparents home, and like in this kind of a similar setting, and whenever she goes to her grandparents home, she will have like super good sleep. And she was also like saying like like some people, they are really you still like you're really still listening to very loud white noises that like no one else could accept because like the interviewee was like raised in an environment where it's super close to your shopping mall. And like
Hmm.
when the interview was really really young, like the parent would um bring him to the shopping mall, and like he feels like that is the kind of like environment where he feels safe, and that is why the white noise worked for him specifically. Yeah, so like we saw this little patterns of like what could actually help them fall asleep and why is it has to be that piece of content. And yeah, we just feel like it looks like growing up, since like people are changing their behavioral sleep pattern a lot because they move to different cities, they start different jobs, but like really at the end of the day it's like those things that are very familiar since their childhood that actually help them fall asleep. Yeah, so that is something we found super interesting.
Yeah, and from that observation, do that help you guys kind of redesign or adapted your like functionality or the feature you are shipping on your app, so that maybe for example we would consider adding, I don't know, adding an onboarding procedural that your AI companion will ask actually about the user's childhood experience. If that's a higher chance that you may find something useful for finding the right content for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is exactly something we planned out. Yeah, because like again, at the end of the day, we're trying to, like help people find the content that could be helpful for them, like not since day one, since the first week, I would say. And we're really
Hmm.
trying to like find these little patterns that those this correlational kind of relationship to their better sleep. And we realize now a lot of like, academic research, they're really heavily focused on the sleeping disorder. But there's like less of them that focuses on, like not like heavy sleep disorder, but like having the trouble falling asleep. So like it's really also kind of a similar progress that we're doing our little research ourselves. But yeah, like onboarding from the first step is something we want to integrate so that we can like compound it to the classifier we already developed to provide better quality content for the users.
Hmm.
Yeah, I actually try your product, right? And the biggest, and personally, the biggest aha moment for me is how realistic your voice narrator could be, and just how good the quality is. And it just sounds so good with the natural flow and cadence. And I'm just wondering, is it sort of aligned with your expectation that this would be the biggest aha moment for first-time users?
I think so. The first time users, yes, but for the long-term users, we're trying to build like the level of, like trust on it, as we discussed. Yes, I think most of the users after using our product and then get back to us, they were like, whoa, is it actually real person or like is it actually AI?
Right.
Yeah, and that is actually something we have been kind of like put a lot of energy on is trying to
Yes.
orchestrate the voice and the little breaks between the sentences, and it is even a different pattern between the bedtime stories versus the meditation, right? Like there's very nuanced like specific designs inside the content and the voice and the tone itself to create that very smooth feeling. And I think yeah, we also mentioned earlier, from my personal experience of using like comment Headspace, I just don't like the voice.
Yeah. I
Like
know these are very much robotic. I don't know why.
yeah, exactly. And they're even narrated by real persons. So I was like, if we have a better way to create like better audio experience, why not? Right.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. And no intention to roast you though, but I'm sure you also get this question a lot if you talk invest if you've been talking to investors recently. Like, what's going to be your moat if like suddenly ChatGPT or even like Claude voice become more and more natural like human?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think like the difference. down to the very deep is still like the sleep intelligence, right? Like, like ChatGPT, Claude, these general large language models, they're capable of doing so many things, but at the same time, there are so many apps that seems to be kind of like easily replicated by the functions of these general large
True.
language models that still like exist and like getting a lot of attention nowadays. So I think the the root difference is like the sleep intelligence. I think like GPT, a lot of times if you talk about your daytime experience to help you fall asleep, like it would say, oh, I feel you, like, yeah, just share more, like, absolutely, I feel that way, that must be frustrating. It's kind of like a ongoing and nonstop like validation, but
Hmm.
it really never like gets you to a point that will help you kind of like zoom out from that context. Yeah.
I see. I
And
see.
also, I think, like, again, what works for different people is so different. Like, for example, some people would just like white noise, right? Like, have you ever tried like using ChatGPT to create a piece of white noise for you? And also like, right? And for those white noise, like, how do you make sure like this is something that worked for you? Yeah. So essentially, the sleep intelligence and that kind of like level of scrutiny on sleep is something like I think essentially differentiates. And that is why we have like a sleep and wellness lead on our team who has,
I
like the
see.
sleep knowledge and expertise behind this.
I see. And since you were just talking about like sleep, intelligence, I assume it's something like a, intelligence brain system in your application. Would your app benefit from something called like data flywheel advantage? Like would you provide better services for all users as like more users come in?
So can you clarify a little bit? So do you mean like as, you know, uh, can you clarify your
Yeah,
questions?
like are you able to and feed and not take advantage, but further refine on underlying tech or model as more people coming in and therefore provide better services for future prospective users.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like we have I think my engineering is going to be a better person to answer this
Oh,
question,
okay.
but essentially we have like agents that are creating your bedtime kind of experience personalization, and that agent has like a learning capability within itself, so it will learn and adapt to your previous, like 7 day selection, etc., and your sleeping time behavior, etc. So that like what we're trying to do is really like to, as you use it for a longer term, you really kind of eliminate the need to kind of need to select ABC to get
Awesome.
to the right
Awesome.
content, right? And
Awesome. You
right.
got it totally right. That's exactly what I was asking. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to ask, what actually do your users now like sharing with the AI companion? Can you do you know that piece of info or and the further down question is, would there be a kind of a little bit privacy concern? Because I think this is a little bit more personalized context comparing to the other like workspace context, right?
Yes. Can you clarify a little bit about like what is the thing you mentioned about the AI companion for our users, like the feedback for that? Like,
Yeah, I was just curious. Are you able to access the like basically the chat, right? The chat the user was sending to your companion. What are they actually sharing, or what are they talking to your product? And the second down question is, would people be concerned of a relative privacy issue if their
yeah,
personalized content is being used in certain way. Yeah.
got it, got it. Yeah, 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 absolutely. So, I think to start from a higher level, it has to do the memory has to do with the memory design system, right? So like we deeply value users' privacy, and that's why like we have like for the memory, we have like short-term memory and long-term memory, right? And as I mentioned earlier, we're not trying to like, like store every single sentence that you share to the chat, to the database, and try to like create like a super nuanced, profile of you. So like the shorter memory, again, my engineer would be better at answering this, but like from my like not very like technical explanation, the shorter term memories are only there to get the classifiers, and the classifiers are the things that are going to be stored in the longer term memory that helps you predict like what the next day content would be more suitable for you. So like we are not trying to like store every single little detail about you, but what we really care about is like what is your status for your sleep that night, what content you listen to that night, and like does that inform us to provide you with a better audio for the next day, right? Because like again, the familiarity is something that works like generally very well for people to fall asleep. And that familiarity could be the content itself, instead of saying like, oh, I recall yesterday you mentioned you had a breakup, you had a breakup, like your heart broke, something like that. It is like, oh, yesterday I said like this content meditation worked like really well for you. And like I think assume like today with this new classifier thing, like this is still gonna be the best content for you today.
Yeah, and you just mentioned about the classifier. Like out of curiosity, can you share with us like what are the different classes you have for now, or is that your secret sauce that you want to rather keep it private?
Yeah, like it is a little bit proprietary information.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is developed by RA Sleep and Wellness Sleep. So again, like I think I shared a bit earlier, like for example, one of the classifiers is the busy mind, right? And for the busy mind, this
Mm-hmm.
content would be like a meditation with a body imagery that guides you to focus on different parts of your body, and then kind of like refocus on the physical world instead of getting caught up on like all those ideas in your mind. Yeah, that's just a very simple kind of
Mm-hmm.
example. But like for each kind of like classifier, you can think of it the status of like your you before going to sleep, right? And for each of them there's like a content uh that would be most suitable for that status. And it is not like the only decision factor for that, like as we discussed earlier, like your preferences for your childhood memory and other factors are also going to play a role in deciding like what is the thing that needs to be played for you tonight.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And want to looking at the future. So going forward, what do you see Lullaby would be down the line? Would it be like a smart sound space, or would it be a bedtime story generator, or just more like a close friend who's willing to listen to you and like tell you a story before your bedtime?
I think I'm open to possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we're still very early in our journey. So, like, I think all of the interviews we've done have been super helpful for us to kind of like frame a little bit more clear picture of the next step we want to head to. But like again, that's only like for a very shorter term thing, right? Like I've talked to another founder people of mine, founder friend of mine, and he was like, I only make decisions for the next 3 months. I'm not gonna make any decisions that is longer than that. So I think like that is something very true for a very fast-paced tech world today, and I kind of agree with him. So like yeah, I'm open to all type of possibilities, and also like we earlier like from our conversation, not from this podcast, but talk about like the hardware potentials, right? Like we also think that is a very interesting trajectory to pursue, and we're thinking about say like do we have to like collaborate with those brands, or do we can like just like start like adding like the plugin kits directly to our app. So instead of like having to access that through a hardware, we can directly get every information from the app itself, with like access to different platforms. Like you can have Whoop, you can have like Aura, like at the same time, right? Instead of say like we can only work for Whoop or Aura, like is it possible to get like all of those together and then magically create something for you?
Yeah, and how would that be like a game changer in terms of like from user side, in terms of like user experiences?
I think like very like as we mentioned, we want like as little friction as possible, right? Like we're trying to make the personalization part like work well. And for that purpose,
You need context.
yeah, the context from the user's talk, but also from users' physical data points, right? And we think like a lot of these hardwares, they're doing an amazing job at
Yes.
like providing the most accurate metrics of your body, right? But like,
Yes.
and there's kind of a little gap for the implementation, the suggestion, the solution part, right? And that is the part where we think like is a very like promising and very fun perspectives for us to explore.
Right. You could become just a sleep layer, embedded inside those smart hardwares. I
Mhm.
think that could be a good direction going forward. Um, and just a little bit reflection at the end of the episode. What do you think? What are something you have learned most about yourself, actually, from your own founder's journey so far?
Yeah, I feel like it's not like about myself, but it's more about like my uh, understanding of this world is that
Oh,
like I used to be a little bit like perfectionist, like especially working in consulting where like even sometimes a comma at a pitch deck would like matter a lot. But like as a founder, I realized like there's really not, a perfect standard. It's like all, artificially created. And a lot of times instead of, like trying to perfect things, I think getting things done and put it out there might get you move a step like further. Yeah, so like where you like start doing things and even when it's not perfect, let people know, right?
mm,
Like that may
mm.
give you very unexpected discoveries.
So you're talking about shifting the mindset from having to achieve all A's, having to achieve 100 on an exam to just getting enough, like getting a passing grade will be enough, and then also like building in public, right? Being able to embrace the raw and all the criticism and feedback out there at the very early on.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
see. I see. I see. And for those like for those young founders who are still feeling early uncertain, what's your words, what's your message to them?
Gambade. It's like it's not an easy journey. Like I think it takes a lot of like self-belief and resilience to be on this journey. And I think like yeah, a lot of times like you really have to have this kind of like self-belief out of nowhere, like backed by
Yes.
no evidence to keep on going. And I think like yeah, again, like the road is not as scary as it looks. So like you have plenty of chance and rooms to do things wrong and like see how you can do like your next step after that. Yeah.
Awesome. That'll be a wrap up to this episode. Thank you so much, Andy, for your time and for being willing to be with us. We look forward to hosting you next time. Um, and folks, if you want to hear more from us, don't forget to follow us across all of our channels, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And follow us and subscribe and stay tuned to what has yet to come. I'm pretty sure now it's bedtime for me, so I need to use Lullaby. And good night, folks. Bye.